Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Thanks for being here. Today I thought I'd go through a few of my audio questions. I've been neglecting them a little bit lately, but I still appreciate it when people send me audio questions, so I'm gonna go through a few of them today. So this question is from Cody, and he's got a question about the INFJ personality. If you don't know what that is, it's one of the 16 MBTI personality types. You can look that up. I just have to say that because if I don't, there's always somebody that will comment and say, "What's an INFJ?" Let's listen to the question.
Hey Clay, this is Cody. Over the years, I've realized that most of my life experience is spent in my head. I get lost in thoughts and ideas, and I work through most of my emotional struggles this way. However, this leaves me often in a difficult position. I struggle to live in the present moment. A lot of people say that I'm aloof or in my own world. Is this a common occurrence for INFJs? Is it a sign of unhealthy introverted intuition? What could be some ways to develop a healthier balance between my internal world and the external world? Thanks.
All right, thanks for that question. So the gist of this question seems to be surrounding INFJs and the dominant function of the INFJ, which is the introverted intuition. So below that, INFJs also have extroverted feeling. But these two functions, are the way that INFJs will approach the world primarily. And so the introverted intuition is a bit of a kind of a mysterious, abstract process of sifting information that comes in and kind of drawing these conclusions, drawing wants, forming goals, forming theories. Whereas an extroverted sensor, let's say an extroverted sensor dominant, like an ESTP, they will kind of experience the world directly with their five senses. It's almost like what they're good at. They're very observant, very in the moment, with their five senses, kind of experiencing the environment. Whereas the introverted intuitives, the analogy that Asura Psych gave that I really liked one time is they're almost experiencing the world through this subjective lens. So think of it like a camera, right? Like the camera is recording the world, but in the middle you've got this lens that's kind of massaging the data into this focal plane in a way that the camera can record it. So rather than kind of watching reality unfold in front of us in real time, like a dominant extroverted sensor would, it's almost like we're watching this replay, almost like we're watching a movie of reality in our brain. So things are happening, it's sifting through the introverted intuition, and then we're kind of experiencing it. The problem is this process kind of takes some time. So a lot of times, the dominant introverted intuitives, or even people that might have introverted intuition in their second spot, like an ENFJ, can kind of need some time to process information. It's a slow process. It needs to sift through in order to come to some kind of conclusions. So I think a side effect of this is that sometimes you can kind of get lost in thought, or it's like you kind of space out and you need some time to kind of process. Unless, of course, it's kind of information you've already processed, you've already thought about, you've already come to conclusions, and you have that information right there. So an INFJ that is debating somebody on a topic that they're quite knowledgeable about can be quite quick and fast, but on a topic that they've never really thought about before, or let's say somebody's telling them some new information, sometimes it takes the INFJs, INTJs a little bit of time to sift through that information. So the real question is that struggling to live in the moment? I know you said you were kind of accused of not living in the moment. To me, I don't know if that's the most accurate way to describe it, because it's almost like not living in the moment means you're kind of living in the past or living in the future. And I find with myself, I'm generally not living in the past or the future. I'm kind of living in the moment, but it's kind of like a different moment in my head. I'm considering some kind of thought, usually some kind of idea. I'm thinking about it. And so for me, it is the moment, but to everybody else, it seems like I'm slightly removed. So I think the reality is, if you're alone or you're having some downtime, this whole process is great. Or like you're working and you're thinking and you're kind of lost in thought, and you're kind of inside yourself and doing your work, coming to your conclusions. And that right there is what the INFJ does. It's a really healthy thing. However, when you're surrounded by other people, this is where I feel like you kind of have to disconnect from that. And it's sort of a conscious disconnect for myself anyway. You want to like go down into your second function, which is the extroverted feeling. And so if you're an INFJ that is 100% in your introverted intuition, then maybe you're going to come across as not interested in people. But most INFJs, at least healthy ones, will be interested in people, and they will fall into that extroverted feeling when they're around other people. So if I'm around somebody, I'm trying to read them, I'm trying to understand, what they're saying to me, I'm trying to understand what they're feeling. I want to provide them a good experience. I want to understand their needs. And when I'm doing that, I find that I'm very in the moment. So, for example, with my daughter, she's only 11 years old right now, but she's in middle school, and she's kind of going through that age now where she's starting to experience some of these interpersonal things. So we have a lot of conversations about, various things people have said and kind of working through some issues. And I find when I'm locked into that mode with her, I'm very in the moment and very attentive. I find where I'm not very attentive sometimes is, let's say I'm busy, like I'm reading, or let's say I'm in the middle of work. And for me, when I work, I get very focused, I get very intense, and I don't want to be interrupted. If I'm doing something and somebody interrupts me, I find it quite disruptive, and I could even be annoyed. And then, so in this process, what happens if I'm just thinking about something and there's people around and then they interrupt me? It's this disruption. I think the real trick for me has been to separate these two parts of my life. So I have my office, I go in there and I work, I read, I do all my thinking in there. And then when I come out and I've got my kids around or my girlfriend Lexi, I sort of flip into a more communicative state, and I try not to get lost in thought. And I think that right there is a bit of a conscious effort. When there's people around, are you withdrawing to like the corner and, keeping to yourself? I'm sure a lot of why people do that is they might not like the people they're surrounded around, or it could be, you're with some toxic people and you just don't want to connect with them. And, that's its own problem, obviously. But I think really the answer to this question is making a conscious effort and try to separate your time so that you have your time for yourself, you have your time to work, whatever that is, you have your time to do your school, or you have your time to do your research or your side projects. And then you also have your time to be in the moment with other people. One other thing that I think really brings me into the moment is activities. So sports. So I actually do quite a lot of sports, and a lot of the sports I do are quite, I think maybe people would describe them as kind of like adrenaline junkie sports. Like I really like mountain biking, like downhill mountain biking, or really like kite surfing. We have a lake here, so I do a lot of that. In the winter, we do a lot of snowboarding and skiing. Do a lot of rock climbing as well. I climb in the climbing gym a lot as just almost like a workout. But the thing about all these sports is they're all fast and they require quick reflexes. And I find that when I'm doing these things, it really gets me in this headspace of being in the moment. And there is really no time to be lost in thought while you're doing these things. So really the answer to this question is, if you're having trouble getting out of your head, you might just be spending too much time off by yourself. Really what you need to do is connect with some people. Find some friends, go hang out with your friends. Make that a conscious effort, or family. Also, get some activities that kind of draw you out of your introverted intuition and get you more in the moment. And I think as you do this, you can work on your extroverted sensing, which is the inferior function of the INFJ. So it is possibly a weak thing for an INFJ. If you work on it though, and work being in the moment, using your five senses, doing things that are technical or almost tedious, like folding a bunch of things. Like I saw this guy on YouTube the other day folding all this paper and making all these figurines. And at first I go, oh, that's so tedious. But it actually could be a good exercise for being in the moment and doing something physical in the here and now and not just being lost in thought. Anyway, I hope that was helpful for people. If you have any questions, leave a comment, and I hope you have a great day. See you later.